This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with remarkable folks who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and for half a century, the legendary Southern rock band Lynyrd Skynyrd has captivated audiences worldwide with their unforgettable sound that celebrates the soul of America. Selling over 30 million records, their music has become ingrained into the fabric of American culture. And even though they faced incredible adversity, losing several members, including frontman Ronnie Van Zant, Lynyrd Skynyrd has persevered. Their indomitable spirit has driven them to continue sharing their gift of music, touring to sold-out crowds. Now they carry on their legacy into the spirits world with the launch of their own American whiskey, Hell House, a fitting testament to their Southern roots and tenacious pursuit of the American dream. Carrying the torch for the band is Ronnie's younger brother, their lead singer, Johnny Van Zant. He joins us today to share the story behind Hell House Whiskey and what's ahead for this iconic band. Johnny, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Johnny. And so I want to start by talking about the magic of Sweet Home Alabama. So I'm a card-carrying liberal from the New York City area, born and raised in New Jersey, yet a song like Sweet Home Alabama resonates with me. Even though I don't know about all the stories that are told there in the song, I don't know anything about it. But I do know that song really hits me deep in my soul. Can you explain that song and why it has this magic that's lasted 4 decades?
You know, I don't know. It started out as a joke, really, about Neil Young being from Canada. What do you know about Alabama? So my brother Ronnie first of all, let me say that we love Neil Young's music. But in the song, it says, about Neil Young putting the Southern man down. And so it was kind of a joke thing, and it just hit. And I think from the first don't, it's a real easy lick. And I think kids that are learning how to play guitar, that's one of the first licks that they love to learn how to play. And the song is really, it just feels happy, no matter what the words say. And it's just a happy kind of song. And you know what? To be honest, we were over in Finland years ago. And I was like, well, I wonder how Skynyrd, because it was the first time that I'd ever been over there. And with the band years and years ago. And when the guys went into Sweet Home, I was just like, oh my God, all these Finnish people know this song. It's amazing, to think that a little old band from the west side of Jacksonville wrote that song, and it's still going strong today.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I can't imagine that feeling, because as an artist, when you travel internationally and you go to these countries that, Finland's, I guess, a little more of a Western culture, but you'll go to some of these Eastern cultures where they probably don't speak a lick of English, yet they'll know every lyric to Sweet Home Alabama. That has got to blow your mind.
Japan, and it freaked me out in Japan because, we got to know some of the fans over there, and they came to the hotel and hung out, and we were all like, hey, what are they about? We're just as curious, and most of them couldn't speak English at that time, but they knew all the words and could sing all the words to the song, which was unbelievable.
That's amazing. Well, obviously you're very good at music, but it sounds like you're terrible at retiring, Johnny. I mean, I know there was like an announcement in 2018, and obviously the pandemic probably changed things, but
we caused so much grief for that. The friggin' virus retired us for 15 months. And 2020 was going to be our last year, honestly. And for 15 months, we sat and watched the world go by and wondered what was going to happen after that. And we had obligations to finish out those dates that we had. And so we said, okay, when we're able to go back out and play, we'll finish that off. And we just missed it so much that it really was. Gary Rosington, of course, was alive during that time. And he was like, you know what? I've come to a conclusion. Musicians never retire. They just play less shows. And I think that's probably what we're going to be doing.
That's great. No, and I think the world wants it. Like, I feel like there was a time that, I came up in radio like the late 90s and 2000s, and I remember there was a time where it was a punchline that the Rolling Stones were still touring because, oh, look at these old guys touring, and now people are like, we can't wait to see them. Like, when they come to town, they sell out every show. Yeah. So what is it about the, guys like you, the Rolling Stones, that can just travel and play for decades and connect with people young and old? That's got to be bizarre, too, where you'll probably look in the audience and you see, like, a kid singing your songs.
We have a song called Skynyrd Nation that we wrote about our fans years ago. And at that point, it was one of the lads was 3 generations bold. Now it's 4. So, and it really is. I always say, if you ride through the parking lot before the show, if it's an amphitheater or outdoor thing, they're out there playing cornhole, they're barbecuing. It's a family affair. And it really is. And I think the older fans have turned their kids on, and their kids have turned their kids on. And it's a pretty amazing thing. I think, if I live to be an old man, I'll probably sit back on some porch smoking a cigar and drinking something, and maybe some Hell House whiskey.
Sure, yeah, we'll get into that. And it's, it's funny, that reminds me of a story that John Bon Jovi told me years ago. Because as you know, in the late 80s, early 90s, the hair bands were, mostly young females would come to the shows. And then they slowly realized these young female fans were turning older, and they were bringing their daughters and creating another generation of fans. When did you notice this, like you said in the Skinner song, like these generations of fans? Did it hit you right away, or was it something slow? Like, wait a minute.
No, it was a slow process for me. Whenever I joined the band, those established fans were already there. Actually, I was under scrutiny. I was like, okay, I just want to sing the songs, I don't want to offend anybody. Because Skinner fans can be very tough folks. They have very high opinions. And at that particular time, back in 86, 87, I was like, man, okay, I don't want to piss any of them off, because they love the band so much. It's more than just the music. It is a nation. It's part of their lives. And but over the years, I started seeing kids. We did a meet and greet, and this kid came up to me and said, wow, I discovered Skynyrd about 6 months ago. And I was like, really? Oh, okay. So he was asking me all about the history, so I was trying to fill him in. And at that point in time, I went, you know what? There's a whole new generation coming into this thing. Wow. And it really is. I mean, we'll do some of these country shows, and kids, that you think might just be into country are totally into Skynyrd. And then we'll go do a heavy metal show with Metallica, and they're into it. So people from different aspects of music that they love this band. I mean, it's an amazing thing.
Well, I'm trying to put myself in a situation where you're explaining to a young kid the history of Lynyrd Skynyrd. What were we there for 2.5 hours? Like, how did I go?
No, I got the short version.
Oh, okay. Good. Yeah, that's the succinct version. You mentioned about the South and how you go from playing with country bands to playing with heavy metal bands or hard rock bands, whatever you want to classify them. And it's funny because Lynyrd Skynyrd was one of those bands that always towed the line before there was a line, because all of a sudden there became a thing where you were either a rock band or a country band. But you guys, and I think even the Eagles probably played in that space a little bit too, of playing to both sides of the spectrum. And now here you go, fast forward to the late 2000s, and you're seeing that. These bands that are playing to both sides, the country and the rock and roll side. Was that always kind of like the sort of the mysticism, the magic of Lynyrd Skynyrd, where you weren't put in a bucket?
When the band came out, my brother and the guys in the band, I mean, very proud to be from the South, but they said, oh, it's a Southern rock band. And they were always under the opinion that, hey, they love blues, country, rock and roll, and all of it. And it was all mixed into Skynyrd. So that tag of just being a Southern rock band kind of bothered them in the beginning. And then, of course, after it kind of grew, they went, oh, okay, well, I guess maybe that's what you want to call us. We're from the South. Do it.
You buy our album, go to our shows. Who cares what kind of we are? And I want one more thing about Skynyrd here is the fact that in August, the band marked the 50th anniversary of their debut album. 50 years. And I know you weren't there since the beginning, but can you put into words, like, for a band to be around and relevant for 50 years?
Yeah, I was around. I was a kid, but I was around, and I can remember that pronounce coming out. And we had an old, from a store called Montgomery Ward's, it was like an old Victoria kind of radio that sat on the floor and had speakers, and you lift the top. And I can remember putting that record on and going, wow, this is so cool. But I don't think at that time anybody in the band or anybody around the band thought, well, okay, 50 years from now, I'm going to be talking to you about this band. So it's a pretty amazing thing. My brother was just a genius at writing lyrics that touch people. And he had a great band great bunch of guys that were with him, and they just had that magical thing at that time, and it just hit. It really hit. And what was so ironic was that Pronounced came out, and it did very well. Gave them an opportunity to make the second record. And then they came out with Second Helping with Sweet Home Alabama on it, and it hit. And people went back and went, oh my God, the song Freebird on Pronounced, and so all of a sudden they had two really big records that were happening. So it was a pretty amazing thing, and being around it, and seeing it happen.
That's awesome. When did the Freebird become a punchline at like every live show? People would scream to whatever band was playing.
It was Van Morrison at one time said, if he hears somebody holler in his audience, Freebird again, he's going to go crazy, So it just started happening, and it was pretty funny. I went to a Cher concert one time with my wife, and I actually got to yell Freebird in the audience.
All right. Oh, I love it. All right. And to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Lynyrd Skynyrd's debut, you are now in the whiskey business. Hell House by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Let's start with whiskey.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you like it?
Well, you know what? Yeah, it's really good. It's 90 proof, so I want to tell people, drink responsible. I had to do a little internet thing, and I kept having to do it and take a shot of it a few nights ago, and about a fourth or fifth shot, I was pretty getting hammered. So it's very good. But we had talked about getting into the business because we used to be connoisseurs of that years ago. So we talked about it years ago, and just the opportunity never happened. And it came along to us from Bespoken, and we got together. We started doing tasting, testing, trying to figure out what we really wanted. And I think we came up with a good thing. I really do. I think our fans are going to love it. And I think people that like to have a nip and tuck, I call it a nip and tuck every once in a while, it'll be a good thing.
And in terms of that taste profile, because I know this is sort of like the complex part of it, you talk about the testing and the tasting. I mean, you had a lot of responsibility here, Johnny, because you had to come up with a whiskey that tasted like Lynyrd Skynyrd. I know that sounds weird, but I'm sure you were probably feeling like that too. It's like, this has to taste, like when people drink this, they have to be like, yes, Lynyrd Skynyrd.
To me, it's a good reference. I think, some people like a little harder shot of whiskey, and some people like a little smooth. Some people like a little sweet, and I think it has all those combinations. I really do.
And it's funny too, because you're coming from the world of music, which can have a bit of bureaucracy and politics, and you've probably learned when it comes to the spirits world, there's a lot of that as well when it comes to getting this stuff on the shelves. How eye-opening has this entrepreneurial experience been to you? Where like, oh, so I can't just come up with a whiskey and it goes on shelves. There's more to it than that.
It's a difficult thing. Each state has their own regulations, and just like I live in Florida, it's taken us a little time to get the licensing and everything to go through here in Florida. But I hear in September we're going to be on the shelves in Florida. So I think the best way to get it right now is through the internet, and it's an amazing feat. It's not as simple as you just said it. It's not as simple as, okay, I'm just going to make this and put it out.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the name Hell House. This wasn't just a random name that you chose for the whiskey.
There's
tell me about that.
For that. The guys, whenever they wrote all these songs, Sweet Home Alabama, for one, was written they had a practice house here in Green Coast Springs, Florida, which is not too far from me today. And on the water, and it was just a little shack, and there was no air conditioning, no heat, no toilet, and they wrote all these great songs out of that place, and they called Hell House. So we went through all these names, because we went back and thought of songs, Still Unbroken, Give Me 3 Steps, whatever whiskey, nothing really fit. And then I don't even know who said, hey, how about Hell House? And I went, you know what? I could see a guy sitting at the bar and going, give me a shot of Hell House,
It's a perfect name, Johnny, because it's one of those things where I always feel like icky when a band or someone comes up with something and they'll just call it like Beatles rum or like, And I'm sure you felt that too. And Hell House is one of those things where it resonates because I'm sure the diehard Lynyrd Skynyrd fans know exactly what that means. So, and then obviously everyone else gets educated on, but at least there is some significance to the name that works with Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Sure. Yeah. We didn't want it to sound phony or goofy and we said, you know what? Hell House is perfect. We should have came up with that in the first place.
And so talk to me about the family dynamic, because I know Lynyrd Skynyrd has basically been a family-run business for all these years. Can you give me some behind the scenes? This is a business podcast. What's it been like running a family business in the world of music and now in spirits? Like, to me, I have a brother, and I couldn't imagine going into business with my brother or touring with my brother. To me, it seems so foreign to me. How'd it work?
If you know the family, then you know that we've had our ups and downs over the years. And since Gary passed, we've actually went, you know what? We need to be closer. Time is short. And we've actually come together better now than ever of running things and being on the same track. And I look forward to the future, seeing what happens. And you know what? It's an amazing thing. I always say the music of Lynyrd Skynyrd's bigger than all of us. When we're long gone, somebody's going to be loving this music. And till then, we're going to try to run the family business the best we can.
Johnny, I'm sure you've heard the phrase like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, how many cooks are in the Lynyrd Skynyrd kitchen right now? Like, obviously it's you. There's four. And how did the four of you come together when it came to whiskey? Was it everyone on board from the jump?
You know what? Everybody thought it was a great idea. We all thought, you know what? Because again, we've been thinking about it for years and just didn't have the right placement or the people to work with. And this came along to us, and between management and all of us, we put it together and very proud of what we've accomplished so far. We hope that it continues, and we'll see what the future brings.
Cool. And let's talk about the current state of the music industry. And
Sure.
So much has changed. We don't need to explain it to everyone how much it has changed. But for someone who's been on the ground experiencing it, what's that change been like to you? Is it almost like just adapt or die, just keeping up with the Joneses? Like, how do you fit in this musical landscape of 2023?
Well, I think for us, the band's already established, so that helps out there. I couldn't imagine being a new artist right now, because records, whenever we started and whenever I started, we sold records and, I still get paper, BMG paper, saying what I was paid for. And they come in a big stack like this, and it's about, $9,000. And I go, wow, 20-something years ago, if I'd have got that, that'd have been $90,000, So I just can't imagine starting out right now. I know we have like The Voice and all that kind of stuff, but I think even that, I don't even know if that's great for artists, because I think you have to get out there and you have to do your, work hard and get your chops like in the old days. And then all of a sudden you go from that and the real world, and it's not Hollywood, and it's a lot tougher for them. But the record labels have 360 deals that they do where they go, hey, I want your publishing. I want part of your publishing. I want some of your live performances, your merch, stuff like that these days. And I just, they have to be out on the road to make money. They can't make money off of, not unless you're very, very successful. Making money off of music is just not something recording wise. It's more of trying to just get yourself out there these days.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. You were just reading my mind, because the one thing that has not changed in terms of the music industry is the touring part of it. Yet that is your bread and butter. Obviously, with Lynyrd Skynyrd is your bread and butter right now. And I think I read that people were saying that Taylor Swift was hoping to become like the first $1 billion tour ever, which I'm sure as a musician, that's got to seem like crazy numbers out there. But you said earlier, you're going to tour until you can't tour no more. How profitable, without getting into like your billing statements, how profitable is touring for you guys today? Like, does the math work at the end of the day with the amount of cost of traveling and all that?
I'll let you know at the end of this year. Because everything in the past, 2 years, everything's gone up. Fuel, Now they have a regulation for bus drivers that you can't drive more than 10 hours. So you have to stop or bring in a co-driver. So everything is just, and you know what? It sucks because who pays the price for that? The consumer, the people coming to the shows. I can remember going to shows for $6.50 or even less. Now you couldn't even get near the parking lot. And it just keeps going up and up and up. So, I mean, when you're running 5, 6 trucks and trailers and buses and crew, it's very expensive to tour. It really is. And for the younger ones, I mean, you see them out there with trailers and pulling trailers behind buses and doing most of it themselves. And they have to do that to be able to make some sort of living. And they have to play multiple shows every week. When you ask me that, I'm very serious whenever I say, I'll tell you at the end of the year. Usually all that comes in at the end of the year, but everything has gotten so expensive. It really has in the last few years.
All right, so let's wrap things up with legacy, because we talked about the fact that, you've got the whiskey, you got the band still touring until you guys drop. Are there more Van Zants coming out of the woodwork that are going to be part of this band going forward and continuing to tour? Like, we mentioned the family business. Are there more, you guys?
No, I'm the last of the wild ones there, man. So there was 3 of us and our family, Ronnie and Donnie and myself. I don't foresee that. I have girls, so I don't think they're going to sing Lynyrd Skynyrd songs. You know what? The future's bright, and we'll see what the heck goes on down the road. We right now we're getting through the day and get through 2023. We're out with ZZ Top. Man, it's been so successful. And again, getting back to the consumers, all these shows that are out. For me personally, sometimes the fans blame the band, the band's charging too much, man. No, we don't have anything to do with that. We come in, we get a guarantee, and if it sells enough tickets, we may get some commission on the back end, but most of the time it's where it's at and the promoter and what the charges is going to be. And it's not our fault, folks. Don't blame the artists.
This reminds me, because, there's this phrase called like Hollywood math, where you'll hear about a movie make $800 million and the studio be like, yeah, we didn't make any money on this movie. How is that improved? Is there more transparency from the band's financial side that you're able to see, okay, cool, X number of tickets sold, we make this amount of money? Is it more transparent than it used to be? Because I know in the dark old days of rock and roll where people were just taking advantage of these artists, are you guys safe?
Most bands, if they're professional and you're playing amphitheaters or working with Live Nation or whatever, have your own accountant out on the road that are doing that kind of things and going through the receipts and what was spent and what wasn't spent, and so hopefully the bands are doing that. So yeah, it is more transparent. You can't ask what the deal is these days.
Awesome. I love it. It's Johnny Van Zant. Thank you for telling me more about Hell House and your story and everything that's going on with the band. So thanks again, man. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, brother. God bless. Bye-bye.
And that'll do it for another episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe. That way you'll get new episodes as soon as they're available. And if you could spare a moment, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review so more exceptional folks like yourself can discover the show. You can always connect with me on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.